See if I go on this and I'm a freestyle. Let's see. Okay, Snoopy beat. R.I.P. MF Doom. Can we do something with this? This beat kind of fire. Should I freestyle? Okay, this is smooth with it. I can think off my mind. I could be cool with it. Should I keep flowing? Cause you know I gotta keep going. Everybody knows I gotta keep flowing. This Fattacheenie, Fattacheenie coming in your area. What you thought I was about to say, derriere? I was about to say derriere, but that ain't a word. I gotta keep flowing cause I keep going. I said that before, but I say it again. Follow me, my friend, Fattacheenie. If you do it once, you could do it again. I keep rapping off the top of my mind. I'm trying to shine. I'm so bright like a diamond. Shout out to Rihanna. Rihanna.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
All right, I'm done. Who this beat? Who made this beat? I was about to keep going for the 3 minutes now. Was that good bars? No. And that's who it is. NO_N. He got 308 subscribers. Subscribe to him. What's good, Fattacheenie fam? What am I trying to say? What's good, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Fattacheenie TV, Fattacheenie Reacts. Y'all got the 20 likes once again. Come on, YIOTA, you killing it, bro. We are going, to go into the next video. I think we're just gonna go on the playlist. Let's look at my boy Vada video.
Where do you go after
Nah,
death?
I never watched this.
What is the right way to
Here we
die?
go. Let's get into this. Here we
Can
go.
death be overcome? And if it can, what are the consequences of such a thing? These questions are at the very heart of Elden Ring's story. And in order to answer them, I want to go over a set of bosses that are defined by their relationship to death. Those being the Death Birds, the Ancestral
I never watched
Spirits,
this.
the Tibia Mariners,
What?
the
Okay.
Godskins, the Burial Watchdogs, and the
Yay.
Black Knight
Let's get into
Assassins.
this. Here we go.
Understanding these bosses will teach you so much.
Homie that was sitting on the ground.
In
I thought
Elden
that
Ring,
was a girl.
oneself is separated into two distinct entities. There's the body, which is one's physical self or corporeal flesh, and then there's the spirit, which is essentially the soul that commonly persists after death. In the age of the Erd Tree, the bodies of the dead and their spirits are returned to the Erd Tree. This is done via a process called Erd Tree Burial, where great tree roots in catacomb dungeons absorb the dead
to make sure that
so
this
that they
is
might
working
be
good.
immortalized with the Erd Tree.
Okay, it's working good.
But it was
Sorry,
not always this way. In fact, the entire culture of death had a different shape in the earlier days of the Lands Between. Back then, instead of Erd Tree Burial, death commonly burned in Ghost Flame. Ghost Flame, also known as Spirit Flame, is a cold, white flame that is created when bones are burned to ash.
Oh, damn.
We learn this from
Who
the
is
fallen
that?
orcs who prowl the underground rivers. When the
I've
last
never
embers
even
of their
seen one of them
torches
things,
were used
y'all.
up, they were forced to burn the bones of their fellows instead, and
I do
acquired
have
the
that,
cold ghost flame.
torch,
This
though. I
process
found that.
appears to help separate the spirit from the body. And while a lot of these spirits appear to be vengeful based on the ghost flame spells, I think in general having the body separated from the spirit in this way would have been a desired outcome. I speculate that we see proof of this even in the current age, where the
they was
wandering
worshiping.
dead
Oh my gosh. Yo. What is that? I don't think I can beat this show. No, don't do it, bro. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Agil Lake gaze at the sky, praying that the dragon Agil might burn them to ash.
Oh, they was
Perhaps
trying to
this was
get
simply
burned.
the acceptable way to put a tired body to rest.
Oh, I thought they were just
The
worshiping
keepers
him.
of Ghost Flame were the
I
Death
beat them
Birds,
joints,
who
but that's
tended to
because
the flame
your
in their
boy had that
graveyards,
holy,
raking
that
out the
faith.
ashen remains
That was
of the
really,
dead
really
from
strong.
their
So
kilns.
they weren't
So I like
hard
to
for
think
me.
of the Death Birds as
Pause on
serving
that
the
statement.
old process of
But
death and delivering death
when
by
I had the
reducing
holy
bodies
joints,
to ash
they was
so
really
that
weak to
spirits
it.
might be better able to move on. Now, admittedly, a lot of these spirits are vengeful.
You better throw
and
that pot
that's
at
how
him.
Ghost Flame is sort of
Who?
weaponized by the Death Birds and sorcerers. but I do think that at its core, Ghost Flame was important just because it separated the body and the spirit. After all, the explosive Ghost Flame sorcery compares this process of death to the Erd Tree's process of death, which was pretty all-encompassing. So I think it's safe to assume that Ghost Flame was just really important to the process of death, and it was more than just, vengeful spirits and a weapon to be used. And next we should talk about the Twin Bird, which was the mother of the Death Birds. We don't find this creature in-game, but we can find its likeness painted vividly upon a kite shield that one of the Death Birds drops. The design might remind you of a phoenix, which is traditionally drawn with bright colors and crested
shout out to Harry Potter.
Amazing! This is just like magic!
Neck. Of course, the phoenix is a creature that rises from the ash when it dies, which is obviously extremely fitting for this story. So the kite shield tells us that the twin bird, or this phoenix creature, is said to be the mother of the death birds. But not only that, it's also called the envoy of an outer god. So we can kind of compare the twin bird to the two fingers, then, who are also envoys to an outer god. They are envoys to the greater will, and similarly, I assume the twin bird probably communes with some outer god of death. And while we're definitely left wondering what greater purpose this outer god might have, the mere fact that it exists lends a lot of significance to the twin bird and its death birds as well. A variation on the death bird is the death right bird, which is an alternate boss, and it's a far more threatening foe, as it actually seems to use power that it's gained from certain spirits and ghost flame. And if you look really closely at its ethereal wings, you might even spy little spirits lurking within. And when I saw these, I was really excited because I recognized the weapon they're using, and the weapon explains who they are. They're holding a little death ritual spear, and that item reads, "The priests became the guardians of the birds through the rite of death, which is a part of their contract for a far-off resurrection."
See, I told you
death
they
birds
was
have a lot to do with sacrificial rites. They don't just attend to the ghost flame, they also deliver death, and they also perform rites of death. So we can assume that these priests were sacrificed in a rite of death so that they could lend a sort of spiritual strength to the death birds. But we're still left wondering about the nature of their contract with the death birds, which promises a far-off resurrection for them. What agreement did these priests come to with the death birds? I wonder what has to happen for their contract to be fulfilled, and how will they even be resurrected? In terms of where the death birds appear, they kind of appear everywhere, and I think that might be a hint that their influence was once present far and wide. And while their importance in the current age is likely quite diminished, they still definitely are relevant in the lands between. In fact, many other enemies actually make reference to them, and some even successfully channel their powers. Even Ghost Flame lights the way in catacomb dungeons to this day.
The headless horseman.
In general, there is a lot of power that can be gained from death in the lands between.
This is it.
Which brings us to the ancestral spirit.
Okay, this drink.
In the flourishing landscapes,
another one that was weak to the holy,
you would have found
to
the
my
bodies
faith.
of 3 large stags enshrined by the ancestral followers. These warriors, hunters, and shamans
Kirk
believe
Franklin
heavily
stomp.
in
They stepping, they just stepping. They doing that Kirk Franklin. To make you wanna stomp. Make me clap my hands. Make me wanna get. Oh, my bad.
principle that life sprouts from birth, but also from death. I think this principle is sort of represented by
was mad
horns,
strong in the
because in
beginning
real
of the
life,
game, though. I
horns
was scared of
continue
them.
to grow throughout the lifespans of animals, with their primary function usually being to convey a social hierarchy. And here, the largest and most influential creature is a giant stag. And in the world of Elden Ring, since life continues after death, it makes sense then that this creature's antlers continue to bud and grow even after its death. We learn this from defeating the regal ancestor spirit and looking at the horn of this fallen king. New growths bud, glowing with light. Thus does new life grow from death, and from death one obtains power. Long-lived beasts like this are worshipped by the ancestral followers, a race of beings who keep their distance from the Erd Tree and are just content to await new buds and new growth. If a being does not show signs of budding horns or new growth, then they are sacrificed with an axe called the Winged Greathorn.
Dang.
Interestingly, the twin blades of this sacrificial axe are called Envoy's wings, which might be a reference to the twin bird we mentioned earlier, which was also a winged envoy.
I did love the
According to
turtle
horn
shield, but
charm
that shield is tough
talismans,
too.
The ancestral spirits specifically arise from long-lived beasts.
What's the
and
yellow one
I think
mean?
this touches on another commonly repeated theme in Elden Ring, which is that there are benefits to living life to its fullest potential. To quote some more Deathbird items, the most glorious end awaits those who cling tenaciously to life, and it is important to render up a death worth offering. Those who
So a
lived a heroic
sacrifice.
life were even able to go on and see a unique version of grace in the afterlife.
Come on,
We
Grace.
currently think that this grace is red, and that these are the same red rays of grace that you might have noticed when you first explored the Forbidden Lands. So this might be the most intriguing part
thought the
of the
grace
video.
was yellow.
Let me explain.
Go ahead,
Past the
brother.
Forbidden Lands and deep within the consecrated snowfields
Over the river
is a
and through the
Tibia
woods.
Mariner. And
Okay,
this one drops
another
Helfin's
boy.
Steeple, a great sword
Weak to-
that
Whoa.
reveals just a mind-blowing amount of lore for one item. First, it reads,
That
Great
sword
sword
is
patterned
fire.
after the black steeple of the Helfin, the lampwood which guides the dead of the spirit world. So the word steeple is
That
commonly
joint is
used
tough.
to
I've
describe
never
the
seen
tall
that sword
spire
before.
found on churches. And indeed, the design of Helfin's steeple echoes that of the Morion blade from Dark Souls, which also referenced
Again.
the spire of a church. However,
Never
while I think
played that
Helfin
joint.
is
This
likely
was
to
my
be
first
a
Souls
sort
game.
of church, I don't think it's a building. Instead, this item seems to be describing the shape of a black tree in the spirit world, a so-called lampwood or lamplight tree that serves as a guidepost for the heroic dead. The item goes on to say that lamplight is similar to grace in appearance, and it is said that it can only be seen by heroic spirits or those who met their death in battle. So the black tree of Helfin is almost like
I've
this
never
dark
been
mirror
there.
of the Erd tree, but in the spirit world. It's so interesting that it even gives off its own guidance of grace, and there's a few reasons we speculate that this grace might be red. First, a red gem can be found at the very tip of Helfin's steeple, and a gem on the rolled medallion as well.
Dang.
Plus, there's a
okay.
red glow visible from the sword's gem, and a red glow from the rolled medallion when you hold it up at the Grand
Yeah.
Lift, where it takes you to the Forbidden Lands, where we speculate that you can briefly glimpse this lamplight or red grace filtering between the trees. So you might be
Okay.
asking, why can we see the grace when we're not dead?
'Cause
But
we
technically,
heroes.
tarnished are defined as the dead who yet live, so
Oh.
it might make some sense that we can see it. The next question is, where does the lamplight lead? And I think there's two options. One is that the lamplight might lead back to Helfin itself. That is the source of the light after all, and Helfin's steeple can be enwreathed in ghost flames, so
That sword
maybe
is
the dead are
tough.
sort of put to rest here. Alternatively, though, I guess it's also possible that the lamplight has plans for the heroic dead, just like Grace has plans for the tarnished. It might lead them somewhere else as
Come
well.
on,
We
Grace.
just don't know. In my discussions with Quelaag, who helped with these theories, she pointed out the similarities that Helfin has with Valhalla of Nordic folklore. If you don't know, Valhalla is a place
Yeah,
where
the
brave
victory.
spirits would be invited
Yeah,
to dine
that's
with
their
the gods.
heaven.
And it seems that Helfin is inspired by that same sort of
warrior-
folklore, since only
warrior's
heroic
death. What was
spirits
that
can
from
see the
Valhalla?
light. Not to mention Hell
watching
with
some-
one
oh, it
L
was from
is actually
Vinland
the
Saga.
name of the world
That's
of the
the
dead
gold. That's
in
a great
Nordic
anime
folklore.
too.
And speaking of folklore, this finally brings us back to the Tibia Mariner, the boss that dropped Helfin's steeple in the first place.
He dropped
the
the
Tibia
death
Mariners
roots,
themselves
too.
actually have no written lore to speak of, which is kind of a shame.
I just
What
realized
they
they're
do
called
have
Tibia
is
Mariners
an
'cause of
incredible
the
visual
bone, the
design,
tibia.
and it kind of carries them from a lore perspective.
another
because
boy weak
this
to my
visual design
faith.
is steeped very heavily in appropriate folklore. So, in Greek mythology, there is a stretch of water called the River Styx, which marks the boundary between Earth and the
Grim
underworld.
Reaper.
And to help souls of the deceased cross this river, you have to find the river boatman and pay him to safely take you across.
Come
Just
on,
so I kind of
Perseus.
imagine the dead in Elden Ring are being drawn to the Tibia Mariner in a similar fashion. You know, he has a purple lantern and a loud horn, and he might offer a similar sort of guidance to the underworld.
What's the horn
There is
for?
one spell that references this boss briefly. It's Tibia's Summons, and it says, "For time immemorial, the dead have been those who are lost and require guidance and leadership." Suffice to say, death was a very important facet of life in the lands between, even for the gods at one
I'm
point.
getting sleepy, but I'm
Which
not gonna
brings us
fall
to the
asleep, I promise.
Godskins, an order of apostles
These
that were born
boys
to deliver destined deaths to the gods. long
gave me
ago.
that
I
word,
kind of like to think
word,
of them
word,
as a
word.
counterbalancing force to the influence of gods.
Big Boy wasn't as
wielding
bad.
sharp tools for boring and slicing
And both
through
of
flesh,
them,
and incanting spells
most annoying
that mocked
bosses.
the wrath of the gods.
Couldn't even beat it by
seems
myself.
These godskins actually succeeded in hunting many gods, if their name is to be believed. Their robes were made by sewing
gods'
together patches
skins.
of smooth skin, and the nobles' robes include subcutaneous fat, which
Ugh.
makes them plump and soft. Known for their seven-faced aprons, these nobles are the most ancient
They were the
apostles,
most scary.
and they're deeply inhuman. Their weapon is not a slicer, but a stitcher, and they wield it with a skill that is unmatched by any
I
low.
like the skinny guys.
These beings were elevated to a social class
sword
above
better
the
than the
lowborn
big boys.
because they served a queen, a glowmite queen. The black flames they
Ooh.
wield are actually channeled from that queen's greatsword, and it was this queen who
That
raised
was
them
me
from
fighting
birth in
them.
the first place, cradling her
Nah, that was
newborn
me and JJ
apostles
getting that
in
work, for real,
godskin
for real.
cloth.
Bleed, brother, bleed. Yeah, I'm about to die.
Alright, Skinny Boy is following me.
Gee, he rolling, he rolling. He rolling, be ready. I got him on a pillar.
This the drone.
He tricked me, G, he going after you.
What am I in? Hello?
G, are you okay?
No,
For some reason
G,
you're not
no.
dying. I'm gonna take him out for you.
Thank you.
Oh, G, he might have took me out. Oh, no. Okay, we good.
So that they might grow to become the death of the gods. This glowmite queen was powerful, but what makes her character so
What
important
about the
is that she
boys that
was
used to
also
throw up?
an
that
Empyrean
they like
chosen
had the
by
little
the fingers.
hoodies and they would throw
Now,
up that like
remember, an
automatic
Empyrean
death.
is a candidate chosen by the two fingers to become a god.
I wanna
So,
learn about
despite
them.
being such a dark character, the glowmite queen was still a valid choice for godhood. And all of this, of course, was before the Rune of Death had been removed from the Elden Ring, and it was from this Rune of Death that the Black Flame originally got its power. We only
Come
know
on.
of one other Empyrean alive at this time,
It's the
and
mortal
that would have been
flame.
Queen Mary.
Black Flame Jutsu. This is Amaterasu, or whatever it's called. But I like thinking of the Hiei drink. Oh gosh. He gonna die.
Naturally, at some point, Marika and the Glowmite Queen clashed. Though, according to the
Well, I said that
Godslayer
was
Greatsword
Amaterasu.
description, we know that the Glowmite
Amaterasu.
Queen was defeated by Malakath, who was the shadow of Queen Marika. He is credited with defeating the Glowmite Queen and the Apostles, and sealing off the Rune of Death, which, again, was the source of
Still
their
the
power.
coolest
What's not clear
boss
to me
in the
about all of
game.
this, though, is whether
Aesthetically.
Marika and the Glowmite Queen were rival Empyreans competing for godhood, or if Marika was already a god and decided to take out the Glowmite Queen because the Glowmite Queen was an Empyrean threat to her age. But at any rate, it seems like
How is he
Marika and
getting
the
these
Glowmite Queen
outfits for
are
these
opposites. You know,
ladies?
the Glowmite Queen ends ages, but Marika wished for an age eternal. So it makes sense that they'd clash, but there's still so much we don't know about them. But after all of this, Marika's Age of the Erd Tree began, and during this age, you were supposed to wait for the roots of the Erd Tree to call to you, so that your spirit could return to the Erd Tree after death to be immortalized with it. Specifically, these roots were found in catacomb dungeons, and there's even a statue found across the lands between that was designed to
Oh,
help
yeah,
people
the
find
joints.
these catacomb dungeons. This is the statue of Rosus, the Usher of Death, and he shows the dead the path towards catacomb dungeons. The catacombs themselves were built in the Age of the Erd Tree.
What is
This
that,
is proven by root resin, which states that the roots here were once linked to the Erd Tree, and it was for this reason that catacombs were constructed around these great tree roots. So at this point in history, Queen Marika had implemented her new concept for death in the lands between, and in her eyes, a proper death meant returning to the Erd Tree, Thus, in the days where catacomb roots were connected to the Erd Tree, these catacombs were valid sites of Erd Tree burial. And I think we literally see this taking place, as corpses can be seen being absorbed by the roots at the end of every catacomb dungeon. The process of Erd Tree burial, though, is described as an honor reserved for heroes, and this process of Erd Tree burial is presided over by Erd Tree burial watchdogs, who protect the catacombs with their impish servants. These creatures are golems, and I think that they might have been created specifically during the period of history where Liurnia had an allegiance.
You know how many times I would go into the catacombs and them little buddies used to mess me up?
But their weapons actually have glintstone embedded in them. Furthermore, when hit by impure crystal darts, they malfunction, which I think is further proof of their glintstone origins. In some catacombs and graveyards, the physical bodies of the dead have begun to rise.
Boss showed up.
These beings are defined as those who live in death, and they are a relatively recent phenomenon in the lands between. Instead of having their body and spirit return to the Erd Tree, they rise in an act that is completely at odds with Marika's concept of death.
I had the holy sword
and the Golden Order.
These brothers never gave me a problem.
I'll go into more detail on this later when we talk about Godwyn, but basically this all began when Ranni stole a fragment of the Rune of Death from Malekith, and then she imparted its power onto the knives of the Black Knife Assassins.
And then they killed
You can
Godwyn,
tell the Assassins have quite a lot of secrets in their lore. We do know a few things though. We know that they're all women. They're all Newman, and they have links to Queen Marika and the Eternal City as well. We'll have to go into more detail on them later though. But with their knives imbued with the Rune of Death, they carved a curse mark into two demigods, Ranni and Godwyn. The curse mark itself is an obtainable item, and it reads, "This curse mark was carved at the moment of death of the first demigod, and should have taken the shape of a circle. However, two demigods perished at the same time, breaking the curse mark into two half-wheels. Ranni was the first of the demigods whose flesh perished, while the Prince of Death perished in soul alone." So interestingly, these assassins and the knives imbued with the Rune of Death had the power to cleave life from the physical body and from the spirit as well. Specifically, Ranni was the one whose flesh perished, and she became a disembodied spirit, free from her corporeal flesh, which is what she wanted, and she now occupies a doll. But Godwyn became the Prince of Death, living without a soul and spreading the Rune of Death across the lands between through Deathroot. Now, according to item descriptions, Deathroot is the Rune of Death itself, and it acts as a source that gives rise
so why
to
was
those
my
who
boy
live in death. Now,
me Seymour
what I find
asking
really
for the
interesting
death
is the...
What does that mean? He on that feed me more Seymour.
Does it have to be human? Feed me. Does it have to be mine? Feed me. Where am I supposed to get it? Feed me, Seymour.
Fact that this Rune of Death that is embodied by Deathroot and those who live in death, it clearly has aspects of both death and life as well, which makes sense based on what you should have learned from this episode, right? Because death isn't just the end, it's life as well. So it makes sense that those who live in death would have aspects of death and life, all contained in these beings that were brought to life in a sense by the Rune of Death. And while those who live in death are a bit unnatural because they do come from this fragmented Rune of Death, this half of a curse mark, they still have life in death.
Inside
so
of
you can argue that they still have a right
life.
to life. And in fact, that's entirely what one of the endings is about, at least how I understand it. And I'll try to explore it more thoroughly later on. These beings are persecuted and hunted down by fundamentalists
my
of the
sword,
Golden Order.
the most basic
And
sword. I
whether
thought I
these
was killing it with
fundamentalists
that
are
drum.
truly serving the fundamentals of order in the first place is just a topic that is very interesting to explore. So, in conclusion, maybe it shouldn't be a sin to live in death. After all, to quote Fia, "In death there is only peace, for in death there can be no sensation."
Go ahead, brother.
Thank you for watching. Special thanks to Quaylarg for looking over this script.
Shout
she
out
has
to
an awesome
her.
channel that you really should go and check out, and it's been great to have someone to just discuss my ideas with. But I'd also like to thank E, the sponsor of this video.
He got another sponsor,
like me to
y'all.
talk about
Fattacheenie
Spectrum,
TV, we
which
ain't
is their
there yet.
high-end
But
game.
yeah, that is another episode. We got a couple more. There's a lot more on his. He got This is episode 4. I done skipped all out of. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yo, that joint an hour and 4. Yeah, we for the last couple ones that's like over 45. I need like 30 likes. But this was a short one. This was a quick one. I only need 20 likes for this one, or to go to the next level for the Eternal Cities. That is a little interesting. I do want to learn about my boy Melika. What's his name? Melika? Melania and Bruh. I don't know. Listen, if you want me to keep reacting to this lore, shout out to Fattacheenie. He got 2.81 million subscribers. I see why. Great videos. If you want me to keep going in this series, I need another 20 likes. And then as we start getting to the longer episodes, I'm gonna need about 30 because I'm gonna have to bring some food. I'm gonna have to be ready. You saw what happened on the last episode. Your boy done fell asleep.
In blue represents a fairy who, in legend, bestowed a flowing sword upon a blind swordsman, blade in hand.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!
But listen, y'all, I need you to like the video. Also, if you're not part of the Fattacheenie fam, please hit subscribe. We keep growing more and more. You guys are loving these reaction videos. And with all that said, I hope you have a blessed one. I'll see you on the next one. Later.